Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here in Philippine Startup Week. My name is Alex, and I'm the Chief Product Officer of BloomSolutions. We're a human resources tech company on a big mission, and that is to impact the life of every Filipino by improving business in the Philippines. Today, I'm here to talk about how startups disrupt traditional businesses. So at Sprout, when talking about purpose and vision, we always make sure that we look at the past. For our new hire orientation, we walk them through the different revolutions throughout history to illustrate the impact and ripples of the current revolution that we are in. So today, I would like to start by looking at some technologies that have disrupted businesses in the past. In an article by Dennis Oakley, he talks about how the printing press by Gutenberg disrupted the old copy shops that duplicated manuscripts by hand. In the decades that followed, thousands of entrepreneurs entered the market, and while the disruption was indeed due to the technology, it was mostly because of the thousands of entrepreneurs who realized the impact of that tech. Here's a second example. So Rockefeller did an amazing job at disrupting an industry, not just by making something faster and more efficient. He took an extremely complex industry and really integrated up and down the supply chain. The thinking was, what would happen if we owned everything? So he and Standard Oil transformed the oil industry and really the world in only 2 years. Third example, we are all familiar with this. Uber, Lyft, and Grab have transformed the taxi industry. This was done through sustaining innovations that improve on the whole customer experience of public transport. Now, these companies have brought about a change in the public's behavior around commuting. And the last one. So now that everyone is at home, this is more evident than ever. Video streaming took the entertainment sector completely by surprise, quickly disrupting the cable industry and driving video rental companies like Blockbuster, and of course here in the Philippines was ACA, to the ground. Netflix has become the largest subscription video provider in the US, overtaking cable and satellite. So let's review. What does it take to disrupt an industry or traditional business model, and the examples that we showed earlier? So the first one, there are preconditions needed for disruption, right? The first is technological innovation, and we saw this in all the 4 examples. The next one is significant social or cultural change. The third one is widespread knowledge. Fourth one is lots of new entrants, as described in the printing press example. And then the last one is innovative business practices that give you a competitive edge long enough to scale. Okay, the question is, so is it prime time in our market? In general, technology disrupting businesses in the Philippines, we have lots of fairly obvious signals that the time is right. And I'll walk you through a bit. So the first one, very obvious, adoption rates of mobile phones and mobile apps in the Philippines. We are currently at, 142%, projecting to be at 148.9% in 2 years. Second, Facebook users. There were 73 million Facebook users in the Philippines in Jan 2020, accounting for 65.8% of the entire population. Now, startups in the country. So this was taken, I think, in February 2020, where there's around 400 startups. I'm always and still am excited about the steady progress in the Philippine startup ecosystem. In 2016, when Sprout was very young, we needed to go to Silicon Valley to get mentorship because there were no real mentorship and accelerator programs here, most especially for SaaS, software as a service. When we were raising our seed round after that, it was so difficult to get regional and global investors interested in our market. The change that we saw, at least in that aspect, was very stark to me when we were raising our Series A in 2019. There was just so much more interest in the market. There were more corporate funds that were being formed, which is always a good signal of a progressing startup ecosystem. There are more high caliber entrepreneurs with an advocacy to give back to the ecosystem, and they were becoming successful and were becoming members of Endeavor. And it's so cool. It'll be so cool to see this really moving beyond Metro Manila to secondary cities. We're projecting 62% of startups looking to enter new in-country territories in the next how many years? Okay, so it looks like the time is right. The question is how, right? Now that we know what it takes to disrupt, let's go back to some practical hows. Now, Sprout is 5.5 years old. We've had some invaluable learnings from our wins, but most especially from our struggles. So the first in the how, is make sure you are solving a problem. We have all seen Shark Tank episodes with solutions or products looking for problems. It's easier to fall into this trap when the thrust for a new product is driven by innovation or technology or by business and not by the consumer. Imagine all of those blockchain startups that were built during the blockchain or the crypto hype. Here's an example, a fun example, crypto kitties. Yeah, so make sure that you are solving a problem. Now, how do you know that you are solving a problem? Answer is always be testing. Do it fast, do it cheap, just do it. If it's just an idea, put up a landing page for it, spend a little on SEO, see how much something like this is really needed in the market. Always test on your customer. And how? Get out of the building. That's a popular phrase in the tech world. If you're making a running app, show your sketches to runners. Number 2, keep your focus deep and narrow. So I mentioned earlier that we went to an accelerator in Silicon Valley. The first one that we applied to was, of course, Y Combinator. We got to the very end of the selection process. They flew my co-founder to San Francisco to interview for the panel. I dialed in. We got through the hard part, and we were feeling so good about it. And then we got rejected. Why? Because they were worried that we were venturing into other projects too soon. We had mentioned during the interview that we do HR and payroll tech, and that we had a recruitment module that was still in beta. Now, Jessica Livingston, the co-founder of YC, in our rejection letter said, for a startup to take off initially, its focus should be narrow and deep and not try to be all things to all people. Because of this invaluable insight, we paused all the development of the recruitment module, brought all the resources back to our core, built deeper functionality, and strengthened our position in the timekeeping and payroll space. Keep your focus deep and narrow. Number 3 is fail fast, fail often, fail forward. Failing fast and often are concepts tied to the agile methodology. It's trying or building something, getting fast feedback, then rapidly inspecting and adapting. Failing forward, other than in agile, it's also tied to positive psychology. It's a concept of getting better, not in spite of failures, but because of them. A startup in any field, not just in tech, because of the digital revolution, needs to understand that iteration instead of perfection is the more effective way to go. Number 4, lifestyle company or swing for the fences. Now, during our first few weeks in San Francisco, we were asked so many times by our mentors and other founders, so are you guys building a lifestyle company or are you swinging for the fences? Swinging for the fences meaning, is this going to be an equity business? So at that time, because our primary goal for joining the accelerator was mentorship and not funding, we weren't sure. We had to spend a lot of time talking about it, walking through the different scenarios, and we kind of broke it down like this. So a lifestyle company, you have more control, more flexibility, you have no boss, you're the boss. You can build an empire and your CEO position is secured. In an equity business, you have more partners, you have faster growth, you can be replaced as the CEO, and you have a higher exit, potentially. Now, the book, The Founder's Dilemma, breaks it down pretty simply, and I encourage anyone looking to fundraise to read it. Basically, it boils down to, are you willing to give up more control to attract co-founders, new hires, and investors to potentially build a more valuable company? Number 5, and this is my last, collaborate with industry experts. A lot of us here are tech people. We aren't HR professionals, we aren't miners, we're not bankers, we're not teachers. Tech is what we know. So let's make sure that we don't pretend to be the experts in the industries that we are trying to help solve problems. Let's be the experts in tech and let the HR professionals, let the miners, let the bankers, let the teachers be the experts in their industry. And the best way to do that is to find and connect with a champion who will teach you everything they know about the industry and work with you in solving the most important problems that they are facing. Something to prioritize in all of this. Invest a lot of time and effort in choosing champions and partners with the same values as you do. Because if you find them and partner with them, it could be priceless. I hope that everyone is trying to look at the bright side of these extraordinary times that we are living in. Thank you all for your time today, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Gian Delarama. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Aya. We're an automation and AI company that I started over 7 years ago. Now, but before I begin, I want to introduce a bit of myself. I've spent most of my professional career actually starting and running startups. But at the very beginning, I actually started with working in the enterprise IT field for large multinationals like Hewlett Packard and Unilever. But shortly thereafter, I transitioned into the entrepreneurship life, and I have been running startups, several startups ever since, with Aya being the latest and hopefully the greatest of those startups. So yeah, so what is Aya? So as I mentioned, I started a company about 7 years ago, or more than 7 years ago, and we began as many software startups here in the Philippines as an agency, a software development and digital marketing agency. Um, at that time, we were serving exclusively large consumer goods company, and a few months after we started the company, we ran into two, I guess, challenges. So my co-founder and I, Aldrich and myself, we ran into these two challenges. What's our first challenge? First was, we were a small company. We didn't have the resources to actually, hire senior engineers or senior developers. The second challenge that we faced was that a lot of our clients were actually asking us to do the same thing. So we had a lot of, potentially repetitive development work in front of us. It was because of these two challenges that we actually came up with our first product. It's called Cogito. It's a workflow platform. It was a no-code or low-code workflow platform that allowed companies to automate their own business processes. No need for developers. That was our way of actually multiplying ourselves. We never had the money at that time to hire senior developers, so we built a tool that sort of replaced or automated that task for us. And this was the product that kickstarted our journey into automation. Uh, and a few years later, we got we were recognized by Kickstart Ventures, who eventually became our first VC investor. And about a couple of years later, one of our clients actually um, asked me if there was a way for us to make our workflows more user friendly or millennial friendly. They had a lot of millennials coming in, and people didn't want to fill out forms, whether they're an electronic form or a manual form. So we came up with, at that point, a chatbot. That this was in 2016, that instead of people to fill up forms online, they simply chatted with a bot in, let's say, Facebook Messenger or their internal chat. That was that started our, I guess, the AI part of our journey. So we started with an automation product, Cogito. We transformed part of it into a chatbot, which we called Nudge. And fast forward to 2019, 2020, we actually combined both products into what we now know as Aya, or the Aya automation platform. Um, And AYA is actually an acronym. We don't normally promote this, but AYA actually stands for Artificial Intelligence Assisting Humans. So what is AYA? So how does the work that we do potentially disrupt the industry where we're in? No? So what we're trying to disrupt, or what we're trying to automate, really is the companies that are in the brick and mortar phase trying to get into digital. Um, and the way we were trying to do this was simply through our AYA platform and focusing on specific processes that we wanted to automate. And the process that we wanted to automate is actually the sales process, the revenue generation process. In some sectors, they call it the order to cash process. So by focusing on this process, we actually enjoyed tremendous growth over the past um, 2 or 3 years. We're in, what we were about less than 15, 2.5 years ago. We're now beyond 100 individuals, and have been consistently growing, by over 3 times year on year for the past 3 years. And what was this product? What is this AYA product that allowed us to grow this fast, and allowed us to help a lot of our clients? So, what we were trying to solve really is, all of our clients, by the way, our clients right now are the large enterprises in the consumer goods, telecoms, and retail spaces. So a lot of these behemoths, um, we're trying to look for solutions to automate, in our case, their sales process. How do they engage all of their customers in a fast, cheap, scalable way? And at the same time, how do they fulfill, the orders of these customers in a fast, cheap, and scalable manner? And traditionally, they tried to go for, these types of solutions wherein, and quote unquote enterprise grade solutions that would usually cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to procure, and maybe a lot more to actually implement. So it wasn't really very accessible even for the largest corporations here in the Philippines. No, so they were quite expensive because there was actually a lot of work that needed to be done. There was a lot of customization. There was a lot of development work that needed to be done. So that's how you know we came in. So by focusing specifically again on sales, we actually gave our clients, a pre-built bot, or a pre-built set of bots that they don't need to do a lot of development for. They just needed to plug in, specifics of their business into our bot, and then the bot can run, based on how we designed it. And it was this accessibility that sets us apart from a lot of our competitors. And I was mentioning bots. What are these three, or what are these bots that are focused on sales and engagement, that we deploy or sell to our clients? We can actually categorize it into three. Um, the first one is health. So our health bot is actually one that we developed this year as part of our COVID response. And since a lot of our customers, remember, we wanted to automate the sales process, and a lot of our customers still started from, brick and mortar stores. You know, how do we ensure the safety of their customers so that these customers would actually want to go into, those stores? So that's what health is for. It's a way to check, answer the standard COVID-19 questionnaires that we're all familiar with by now in a secure manner. So we do it via chatbots, either through Facebook Messenger, Facebook Workplace, or Microsoft Teams if it's an internal requirement, or even through SMS. Um, so yeah, this is one product that we're selling. The other product is called Commerce. So this is actually our way to automate, the selling process. And the Commerce bot is a way for our customers to sell through chat. And now actually through chat and social media. So whether it be via Facebook Messenger, Viber, and other channels, we can deploy, or our customers can deploy on their own, a commerce chatbot in less than 30 minutes. Now, for our much larger customers who require more customized and, more enterprise grade solutions, so to speak, this is where actions come in. So I'll give you an example. Um, we have a customer in the consumer goods space, that deployed chatbots to automate the selling of their products. So that's good, automated selling. There were a lot of more customers that came in. There were a lot more orders that came in, but they had a bottleneck. You know, their order processing, their back end order processing was still done mostly manually. People still had to encode into their internal enterprise platforms the orders that were being generated from the chatbot. So this is where we deployed Actions. So Actions is our robotic process automation bot. So what's RPA? So it essentially takes, it automates these repetitive business processes, usually in the encoding side. So what the Actions bot does, it actually reads the orders coming from a chatbot that we deployed for this client and then encodes it automatically into, in this case, their SAP system. And when I say encode, I literally mean encode. We have the capability to take over the keyboard and mouse input of a computer. So that instead of a human doing the actual typing, a bot does that for them, and obviously in a much faster manner. So, and all of these bots are designed to be deployed much faster than our competitors. In fact, most of our competitors do so in about 1.5 to 2 months. We can deploy our Actions bot, which is our longest bot to deploy, in less than 2 weeks. And our fastest bot to deploy is actually Commerce, which I mentioned can be done in less than 30 minutes. So, you know, we've grown um, through, doing a lot of these bot deployment for some of the largest companies here in the Philippines. Here are some of the companies that we've worked with, and we're particularly proud of the work that we've done for the Kira Contra COVID project, which we did in conjunction with several other startups and large companies. So we actually developed the Facebook side using the Aya chatbot platform. And per Facebook, this was one of the fastest bots to be deployed for COVID-19 in the Asia Pacific region when we launched it last April 17. And it's still actually running now. And our commitment actually is to run it as long as, COVID-19 is an issue. So we've done all of these work across multiple accounts, and really this has you know set us up in a way that I myself thought was impossible 7 years ago. I mentioned we were growing over 3x year on year for the past 3 years. Um, our bots now do 20 million transactions every month, and our chatbots serve 1.4 million customers every month. And these numbers are actually growing at a rate of about 25 to 30% month on month. In fact, this month we should probably be serving almost 2 million customers already. um, and as I mentioned, we're over 100 strong. And another thing that I'm particularly proud of is that in our executive team, there's four of us. 75% of three of those are actually women. My co-founder and CEO Joyce, our CTO Tiff, and our CMO Mika. Obviously are all women, and women. We are a very diverse workforce, even within our managerial ranks as well. Half of our managers are actually women. We have a very strong LGBTQ plus community in the company, and we're actually a member of Pride at Tech. And we really want to bring back all of the blessings that we've gotten, and we've actually supported three advocacy. So not only are we disrupting um, let's say the sales automation game, so to speak. But we also want to give back into our community by supporting, those that need help the most, especially now during the time of COVID. Our commerce bots are actually free for 90 days, without restrictions for use by any SME in the retail sector. Um, and all of our bots actually have a 1 month, aside from commerce, the other bots have a 1 month free trial, so that the businesses can actually use it, try it out at no cost to them. And if they want to move ahead with it, then it's okay. If they don't want to, then it's still okay. But really, that's how we want to help our community, especially in this time. And business, or our business, really isn't just about disrupting, but also enabling. Um, that's why Aya is called artificial intelligence assisting humans. Our goal isn't really to completely automate the human side, but place bots in areas wherein they will be of the most use. And of course, us humans, or the brains as we call it, will be in places wherein we can use our creativity, our problem solving skills to the best, and not just doing the mundane, repetitive, encoding tasks. So yeah, so that's what we do. That's who we are at Aya. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present, what we're doing, how we disrupt our side of the world, and have a wonderful and safe day.
Hi, everyone. My name is Luis. I'm one of the founders of a company called BloomSolutions. We're a 100% Filipino company. We've been around for a while. We're about almost 5 years old pretty soon. And it's always been our mission to be the most trusted, most safe, most reliable cryptocurrency trading business in the Philippines, maybe even in the Southeast Asian region. Now, maybe you don't know what cryptocurrencies actually are. Maybe you heard it from the news somewhere. Maybe you heard it from some of your nerdier startup friends. So I'm going to just spend a little bit of time just telling you a little bit about our business and the industry to kind of give you a sense of why we exist, why we do what we do, why it's so important for us to have things like trust and reliability and safety and security. So, I mean, if you've not really heard of the word cryptocurrency, you've probably heard of the word Bitcoin. And that is definitely a kind of a nerd thing amongst a lot of kind of the more tech savvy people in our industry, also very globally. And if you know anything about Bitcoin, you probably know that in January of 2020, earlier this year, it was $7,000. And as of a couple of days ago, it is well over $13,000. So that means that theoretically, if you had bought Bitcoin at the start of this year and you had maybe sold it in October, just a couple of days back, you would have doubled your money, essentially. So that's kind of the pitch, right? So, okay, price went up. That means it's good, right? But the bigger question really is why? Why did the price go up? Why is there suddenly, I guess you could say, market interest for this thing? If you know anything about Bitcoin, you know that it's been around for a while. It's actually 11 years old. No? And maybe your biggest question is, why are people paying $13,000 for this currency? Here is a possible explanation. And this has nothing to do with Bitcoin anymore, technically. This headline, let me just read it to you because it's super important. $19 trillion in stimulus injections. The Federal Reserve's 2020 pump eclipses 2 centuries of USD creation. So that's kind of a lot to unpack. So I'll read the next caption here. Estimates say in 2020 alone, the US has created 22% of all of the US dollars issued since the birth of the nation. Okay, so again, a little bit of unpack. What that means is that in this year alone, they have inflated the monetary supply, the total amount of US dollars in the world, they have inflated it by 22%. Now, if you are even a little bit inclined towards things like economics or business or any of those things, you'll probably be asking yourself, how can they do that? Can they just add more dollars to the supply? Is that okay? Like, what happens to the dollars that were there? Because essentially what happens when you just add a whole chunk of new dollars to the monetary supply, what happens is that it actually devalues the rest of the dollars that were already there. In this case, it's devalued it by over 22%. And why is that okay? I mean, I can tell you why they're doing it. They're doing it because of the lockdown, because the pandemic, because this economic recession that we're in. It's forcing them to take aggressive measures to get people to spend money again. And one of the ways to do that is to add more dollars into the pool, so people will feel a little bit more comfortable in their spending. And that's the reason why they're doing it. I'm not saying that it's necessarily ill-intentioned, but it's certainly not a great monetary policy. And that's pretty much why Bitcoin was invented. It's because of situations like this. So the reason why I got into this industry was because I genuinely believe that Bitcoin is the financial disruptor. It's a way to basically rethink money itself and rethink monetary policy. I don't have like several hours to explain all of the details to you, but I can tell you that one of its key characteristics is that it's invulnerable to inflation. You can't add more Bitcoin to the Bitcoin pool. Not in the same way that, like apparently the US government is just like adding more dollars to the dollar pool. So you can't do that with Bitcoin. And it is powered by mathematics and electricity instead of, well, I'm being a little facetious here, but instead of human greed. Because like in their desire to keep the US dollar afloat, they are starting to do these very aggressive economic measures that will have very, very bad long-term effects for not just the States, but also for every country in the world that is partially dependent on the US dollar. That includes the Philippines, because basically every country in the world is kind of dependent on the US dollar. And that kind of brings me back to my company, Bloom, and why it's so important for us to be a gateway for cryptocurrencies, for Bitcoin specifically. One of the most interesting things that happened in the just last month, actually, is that more and more of traditional finance has finally, I guess you could say, they've finally capitulated. What that means is they've finally like given up almost, or they've admitted that they were wrong about Bitcoin in the first place. Now they are going to have to find some way to integrate Bitcoin into their businesses. PayPal was the most massive announcement recently. They have 360 million users around the world, and they are going to be adding Bitcoin buying and selling inside their wallet. So, it's going to have a really big effect on people who've never heard of Bitcoin, maybe, or maybe they already knew what Bitcoin was, but there was no convenient way to acquire it. Now you can do it from the safety of your own PayPal wallet, and that's a really big deal. The other big news very recently also was that JP Morgan is now looking at Bitcoin as a direct competitor to gold. And if you know anything about gold, it is that gold has been around for 6,000 years as a store of value. The fact that Bitcoin, an 11-year-old technology, is now potentially going to usurp gold's position as humanity's best way to store its wealth, store its value long term, that's a really big endorsement. And what's even funnier about this is that, up to about a year ago, JP Morgan was incredibly negative on all of this stuff. So anyway, so let me go back to my own company, because I basically just talked about the Bitcoin industry over the last couple of months now. Bloom has basically dedicated its business life to becoming the country's market-leading crypto trading platform. And the simpler way for me to explain what that is that it is a way for normal people, normal businesses to acquire Bitcoin and then to hold it, right? Just hold it. And then if the price goes up at some point in the future, then you can turn it back into pesos or dollars or whatever you want. But you need a trusted gateway first, and that should be Bloom. We've been very fortunate that, in spite of things like the lockdown, the pandemic, all of this stuff, and, I'm not going to say that it was a super great year. I don't think it was a great year for anyone, but for Bloom, kind of surprisingly, it was our strongest year that we've ever had. Our numbers have been pretty significantly higher than the previous. And I think one of the reasons is because of the news that I've been sharing with you earlier. There is more and more awareness out there that our monetary policies are seriously screwed up, and we need an alternative that has nothing to do with the government or the central banks or things like that. We need basically the internet answer to monetary policy, and that's basically Bitcoin. So in this past year, we've done over 4 billion pesos in trades, 20,000 transactions. We have 12 trading venues, and I'll talk a little bit about what those are over the next couple of slides. But the one thing I will tell you is that the most important thing to us is that when people come to us, they know that we know what we're talking about. This stuff is basically our lifeblood. It's basically a lifestyle for us. And B, they know that when they deal with Bloom, we are licensed and regulated by the Philippine government. And that is super important because it's very easy to say that you are a crypto specialist, trading guru, whatever, right? Because those are just titles. But it's different when the government itself has actually licensed you for this particular activity. So because of that, we have a certain standard that we have to always hold ourselves to, and that's very important for any of our customers, especially the ones that are big corporates, right? I mean, if they're gonna drop several million pesos out of their treasury into Bitcoin, they want to know that the person that is helping them do that is completely reliable. We've got a couple of interesting locations that we've managed to get up over the last year. So one is in Sheraton. We've got another on EDSA near the Buendia intersection. So if you happen to be driving down EDSA, you see a big wonking Bitcoin sign in one of the buildings. That's our location. Those are kind of the most obvious physical places where you could go to trade this stuff. We've got a couple like Zarina, a 45-year-old foreign exchange business in the country, is one of our deepest, most trusted partners. So if you go to any Zarina foreign exchange location in Metro Manila, you will be able to buy and sell Bitcoin with they're running Bloom software in the background in order to do that. So we're trying to get to as many places as we can, and we're trying to basically make this stuff professional. Right? Make it as professional and as reliable as you just going up to any normal foreign exchange and maybe buying or selling dollars. It should be as simple as that. So that's kind of one of the goals. Beyond that, we're also very, very much online. So it's not just these offline businesses, these physical locations. We're also in a couple of different marketplaces, Paxful, Binance. Sometimes we do our biggest trades through Facebook Messenger or Telegram or things like that. So we're very much both an online and offline business. And especially during the lockdown, because of not being able to go to these locations, these physical locations, most of our business has kind of transitioned into purely online. And I'll say that about 90% of all of our trades is probably happening on Telegram right now or Facebook Messenger. And that's kind of the new normal for us, I guess. And that's not bad. It just means that people can stay safe and still kind of trade, buy and sell, and earn from cryptocurrency. These are kind of, I wasn't really sure if I should be sharing this, but I mean, let's just say that we've done quite well over the last 8-9 months. From January, we've basically quadrupled our numbers. And again, the main selling point for a lot of our customers is we are very competitively priced. We're probably one of the lowest, if not the lowest prices in the country, so very affordable. And then secondly, most importantly, we are licensed, regulated, we're compliant with the Central Bank of the Philippines. And that means that there is no fear that we will ever do anything untowards with our customers. There is no fear that we will ever try to, run a scam on them or anything like that, right? Because the central bank itself checks what we're doing, and we are answerable to them. So I guess in the question of what we're doing to disrupt traditional finance, you could kind of say that Bitcoin disrupts all of finance, because it is a completely new way of thinking of the world when it comes to money. I mean, I'm not going to say that the world completely revolves around money. It certainly does for some people, but I think that it is a very significant part of why our societies function the way they do, why there are so many of us that is, for example, just so heavily indebted that all they can do is be employees for the rest of their life just to kind of pay back their debts. There's something wrong with the way that society works right now, and a large part of it is because of the way that we have designed our money to always be so easily inflated. So people can constantly just keep adding more numbers to the ends of our notes in order to make it look like people are actually earning more money when really they're not. So there was a lot. I just said a lot, right? And I certainly kind of went very, very broadly, kind of very just over the top a little bit there, just to kind of give you a sense of how deep this industry has become. But obviously, I didn't have time to really go into details. My co-founders and I, also during the lockdown, actually, because we were all stuck in our homes, we decided that we wanted to do a weekly news show about cryptocurrency, about blockchain technology, about Bitcoin, Ethereum, DeFi, all of these kind of trending words and things like that. We call it the Bloomcast. And if you want to watch us, we're live every Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. This is on Facebook Live or on YouTube. So your choice, wherever you want to go, whatever is easiest for you. And it's super easy. It's just bit.ly/BloomTV. That's how you'd find us. Or if you want to, talk business with us, our website is bloom.solutions. Again, my name is Luis Buenaventura. I'm one of the founders of Bloom. I'm super happy to be able to speak to you guys, and I look forward to continuing the conversation about crypto. It's something we're deeply, deeply passionate about, and we want to get other people really passionate about it too. Thanks so much.